When we think about the world's biggest problems, war, the economy, you name it, there's this other force, AI, that's quietly weaving its way into, well, everything. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on what people really think about it. We're talking hopes, hidden anxieties, and where we actually stand on a technology that's changing our world. Okay, let's get into it. So the big question right off the bat is, how much do we really worry about AI? I mean, when you list out all your concerns, where does it even land? Is it keeping us up at night, or is it just kind of background noise? Well, at first glance, the answer seems pretty simple. When you ask people to rank today's problems, only about a quarter of them say AI is a very big problem. It just doesn't seem to stack up against heavy hitters like war or the economy. So, case closed, right? We're just not that worried? Well, not so fast. That number is actually hiding a way more complicated and honestly a more interesting story about how we truly feel. It turns out our anxiety isn't really about AI as this big, abstract thing. No, it's about what we think AI is going to do to the stuff we already care about. And that's where things start to get really telling. Just look at what happens when you change the question a little bit. Ask people how AI will affect the problems we already have, and suddenly the whole picture flips. Half of us think AI will actually make things like unemployment and crime worse. So you see, the fear isn't gone. It's just latched on to the anxieties we live with every day. So when we drill down into what that fear actually is, it's got nothing to do with sci-fi killer robots. Our real worries are much, much closer to home. They're personal, and they're about right now. And get this is a pretty wild shift. More people today are worried about AI messing with their relationships than with their jobs. That's what this number means. 3 out of every 5 people are concerned that AI is going to start replacing real human connection. The threat's moving from the office to our personal lives, and that just feels different. And on the crime front, the fears are incredibly specific. We're talking about AI-powered scams that are getting way too convincing. The horrifying use of deepfakes, fake videos of politicians throwing elections into chaos, and just a tidal wave of misinformation. These aren't far-off threats. They feel like they could happen to any of us, like tomorrow. This line from a survey respondent just hits the nail on the head. The idea that someone can take your face, your actual identity, and use it to commit a crime, that's about as personal as a threat can get. And you can see how these brand new fears are crashing right into our oldest social rules. Ask people if an emotional relationship with an AI is cheating, and you get totally different answers depending on where you are. In the US, half the people say, yeah, that's cheating. But in France, it's way lower. It just goes to show our reaction to AI is filtered through our own culture. And all this leads to a really important point. Our anxiety about AI isn't spread out evenly. Not at all. It actually maps right onto the cracks we already see in society, and it threatens to make them even deeper. I mean, the gender gap here is huge. Women are more than twice as pessimistic as men about AI's impact. And that's likely not just a feeling. It could be tied to a very real concern that the systemic problems women already face could get even worse with this new tech. And you see almost the exact same story with income. It's a massive divide. 65% of people with lower incomes feel pessimistic about AI, but for higher income folks, that drops to 40%. It's pretty clear that those with less of a safety net are feeling a lot more threatened. And right here, this is the fear that's sitting underneath all those other divides. Almost half the public is convinced that the rewards from this whole AI revolution won't be shared. Instead, they'll just flow to the people who are already at the top, making the gap between the rich and everyone else even wider. Okay, so with this really complex mix of fears and divides, who are the people that are actually going to shape this debate? Well, researchers have pinpointed 5 distinct groups, 5 publics, whose reactions could decide everything. So these are what we call the AI publics, 5 politically active groups, and each one has its own unique take on AI. To give you a taste of how different they are, let's just look at 2 of them. First up, you've got the tech-positive Urbanites. Think younger, educated people living in cities, the kind of folks who are generally pretty comfortable with new technology. But here's the fascinating thing about them. They're a total contradiction. They love using AI in their personal lives, but at work, they are deeply anxious. A massive 7 out of 10 of them see their own job as high risk. And because of that, they're actually one of the groups most likely to want the government to step in and regulate these AI companies. Now, for a totally different perspective, let's look at the globalist guardians. This group tends to be a bit more affluent, a little older, and they have more of a, global view on things. See, their fears aren't about their own jobs. They feel pretty secure. They're worried about everyone else. Their biggest fears are those big existential threats, like AI being used in warfare or making major political decisions. So it makes sense that they're the ones pushing the hardest for a big, global effort on AI safety, because they sure don't trust the tech companies to do it themselves. So when you pull all of these different threads together, the hidden fears, the deep social divides, these competing groups, what you're left with is a public opinion that is balanced on an incredibly thin line. And this is what that balance looks like. Ask people flat out if they're hopeful or fearful about AI, and the public splits almost perfectly into thirds. A third are hopeful, a third are fearful, and a third are kind of sitting on the fence, undecided. We're not in a comfortable middle ground here. We are on a razor's edge. And in the end, it might all just boil down to this. This quote from one of the people surveyed really gets to the heart of it. If we can't build trust in the tech, in the people making it, and in our leaders, then we really don't have anything. And that balance is so, so fragile. Any of these groups is just one big news story away from pushing everyone else to their side and tipping the scales for good. The future of AI isn't going to be decided in some lab by a few developers. It's going to be decided out here by all of us. The only question left is, which way